Joining me on Duber's Discussion and B94's 814 Sports Beat is Nate Steis. Nate does a wonderful job running Western PA Sports Blog. We're going to talk about that. And also, since you're a little younger than me, Nate, it's going to be kind of nice to get your view of things in the sports world. But Nate Steis, how are you? Fill me in on what's going on with you today on Monday. Wednesday's the interview will be airing, but how's life today, Nate?
Duber, hey, first of all, thanks for having me on. Very excited for the discussion. Very blessed to be on this program, and I'm doing pretty well. All things considered, we're coming off a very awesome long weekend, America 250. Very blessed to live in this country, and good vibes all around. It's a really good time for sports. We have the baseball All-Star game, training camp soon, the World Cup in our country. So I feel pretty blessed right now, Duber, and lots of stuff on television to watch, and a lot of great stories to tell this summer. It's always a good time to catch up with collegiate athletes around the region. So that's what I've been doing with Western PA Sports Blog, especially the last month and a half since college let out.
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, I'm just in a good mood today. My cat Joy finally has figured out the litter box, so that's a salute. Good. So we're gonna have you keep my good mood going. Also, Leo, the producer, the 102-year-old that keeps me intact here, he's walking around with a Flavor Flav clock on his neck, Nate. So he's going to be pushing me for time a little bit. But let's talk a little bit about your Facebook page, Western PA Sports Blog, which, it's also out there on the web. Just fill me in on that and what got you going with that, Nate.
Sure. Yeah. So it was 2020, and, honestly, 2020 was, a tough year for so many people. A lot of illness going around, living through a pandemic.
That, by the way, is the weather, people. Just letting you know. That could have been a transformer or something, but that's outside Studio B if you heard that bang. Sorry to interrupt you, Nate.
Hey, no problem. But yeah, 2020 was a tough year. Unfortunately, I lost a couple jobs in the newspaper business, and I was working a temporary job with a Fortune 500 company in human resources at the time, and I got let go before my contract was going to end, in a few weeks. So I was just looking for something to do, looking for a way to make a difference, looking for a way to, find what was going to be next for me in sports and in my career. And, I leaned back on a conversation I had with John Bernardi, who was Ridgway Lady Elker's coach and Ridgway Elker's basketball coach for many years. Yeah. And Tony Allegretto, my longtime head boys basketball coach for Ridgway, I had a conversation with them, and they said, Nate, we think you're really good at this. And I said, well, I mean, I don't think I'm that special. I just think I really love it. And they said, hey, we think you should start your own thing. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what goes into that. I never really thought about it. I was just kind of writing at that point for a couple bucks and, just to do something for fun, catch up with cool people. And so, I leaned back on that conversation I had a few months earlier with them, and I decided to just try to figure out how I can start my own thing. So I leveraged a website from WordPress. I created a social media account, and I was kind of off to the races. I started with an Instagram account and, didn't really pay too much attention to it at first, but then all of a sudden I, just started kind of getting more interested in the recruiting processes, sharing good stories on my little website. And then from there, a couple years later, I made a Facebook account, and then I made a Twitter account, which is now X. I made a podcast account on Spotify Podcasters, Apple Podcasts. I did that for a little bit. And, combined between Instagram, X, and Facebook, I probably have about 20,000 followers on those different pages. Yeah. So, very blessed that it's grown to this. I never would have imagined. I'm just very, very thankful that so many people support the page and, want to be featured on it or have taken an interest in reading about the different people from our region. So that's kind of how I started.
Yeah, and I love passing those on at Duber's place. And the thing is, you mentioned John Bernardi, and I'm thinking back the first time I met you, Nate, I think so. I started in 2018 back at the Record, and I think that summer you were writing some features. But that year might have been 2009. Either way, I remember when John was coaching the Lady Elker's holiday tournament, I met you for the first time, and that was when he had that infamous jump off the ground when they won. And,
Right.
so I'll show that picture, but also in that picture is your sister Lindsay, who just played one heck of a game, was one heck of an athlete to follow, and just the joy that you see from those kids. And that was the time where, man, I'm doing what I want to do. This is what it's all about. So just again, I don't know if you remember that day, but that was just one of those days. But again, that was the joy. I got to meet you, and the joy of what we saw on the court that day, Nate.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, dude, I remember that day very well. I believe it was December 2019 holiday tournament. I had just graduated college, and I was doing some writing for the Bradford Era as well. Yeah. And Jake Mercer and I went together. He helped me with stats because he was trying to break into the business, not long after me, too. He's a year younger than me. And so we statted that game together, and, we split the money for the Bradford Era, insertion because he came and helped me do stats. So I gave him some of that money. And, we sat there, and we had a good time. We had a good conversation. They won on that crazy buzzer beater. I think that was the first time that the Lady Elkers made the championship game in the holiday tournament. And don't quote me, but something like 15, 16, 17 years there. So that was a big deal that night. And, they beat ECC. So, definitely a noteworthy win for the program. But, I remember that was kind of the first time that we interacted. I'm glad we've kept in touch ever since, for sure.
Yeah, at that time I'm thinking, so I'm 63. What year did you graduate, Nate?
I graduated in 2015.
Okay, so you're a little younger than I, but it was just so nice to see that, I guess, for lack of a better term, your generation was ready to carry on the torch, and the enthusiasm I saw from you, and that's what you bring every day. But, you also had a chance to graduate from Ridgway and compete in sports, and we won't have to go through all the illustrious details, but I think people need to know that, that sports background helps, buddy. Well, obviously graduated from Ridgway, and you were part of the sports scene in Ridgway, and a little bit about your playing career, what that meant, and really what that kind of did for you, Nate, because it obviously has helped your enthusiasm moving forward.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate this question so much. So, Duber, I was so lucky to play for a 1A high school in a rural Pennsylvania town. And what I mean by that is we didn't have to try out. I just got to be on the team. I was not a great athlete. I loved it. I loved to compete. I loved to be around the guys. But, very blessed to walk away with 6 varsity letters. But I think that was a lot in part of, becoming a senior and, being a special teams specialist in football and, playing some baseball, getting to pinch hit a few times, run the bases, play in the field a little bit. I wasn't an all-star player, but I loved it. I loved to be out there with the guys. I loved to, go to practice and, just be around a great camaraderie. And, I think my love for sports, I really think it started just playing with the neighborhood kids and, just listen to the conversations that my grandfathers, my uncles, my dad would have with each other. From the time I was 5 years old, I would list my favorite sports show as Sports Center and ESPN News, which has since been canceled. But I remember being 4 and 5 years old and waiting to go to preschool and kindergarten and waking up early, and I'd be watching Sports Center and ESPN News, reading that bottom line and, trying to figure out what happened, because that was before social media exploded and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know. I just was always fascinated by it. I think I wanted to be like the older men in my life and be able to chat with them about it. I can remember reading a book filled with baseball legends and learning all about them and their statistics and things. And so whenever I had the chance to play, it was pretty special.
Yeah.
But I will say I was no all-star, Duber. I really wasn't. But I will say I learned so much from being a part of a team and just to be honest, sit in the bench and just watching other guys play and listen to the coaches coach. I learned a great deal about sports from them and, was blessed to be able to be a part of a team in college as a team manager for 2 years at Penn State Barron. I was their team manager for the basketball program, learned from one of the longest tenured NCAA basketball coaches right now in the country, and Dave Nyland. He's been the head coach at Barron for like 30 plus years. had a lot of success, learned so much from him. Actually just talked with him today. And so I just feel so blessed, Duber, for all the opportunities that I've had growing up in a small town to be a part of those teams and, kind of be accepted on those teams. But, my days as an athlete or anything but memorable, I think I'm better known as a sports media guy, and that's okay with me.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, buddy. But again, I think it did give us that background because we can appreciate those things. We can, there's nothing better than like when I was taking pictures when the guys that might get in, the girls that might not get in a lot, and they do something, and you get that picture in the paper and. It just the feeling of, yes, you belong, you're part of everything. And man, just the joy and the smiles. And really that's what being a team is all about. I mean, I get it. And there's things that happen, but at the end of the day, it is about fun. And if you can't have it, I don't know what to tell you. So it's just good to see those smiles, buddy. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. Especially like you said, for some of the young people that they might be going to practice every day for 3 or 4 years and, they never get the glory, but it doesn't mean they don't go to practice and fight their tails off to make the team better and, bring that juice, bring that energy, bring that enthusiasm. And sometimes the guys sit in the bench or the girls sit in the bench, they have a lot of know-how. Doesn't mean they, that they're, just because they aren't maybe not the most talented athletically that they're, not, very inept in knowing the game or knowing the sport. A lot of times they can tell their teammates what they see out there, even if they can't go out on the floor and execute it themselves. Right. So, I love to see stories like that. Seniors playing on senior night. Yeah. Those people that might be a junior varsity player going to get some run out there and have some success. There's nothing puts a smile on my face quite like that. They don't always get the glory, but it doesn't mean that they're any less part of the team than anybody else. So I really appreciate that you said that. I really feel the same way, genuinely. Yeah. You also got the unique part. You were part of the co-op, were you not, when Ridgway and Berg merged for football? I was, yeah. And truthfully, at first, I think I took it so bad. I was a young teenager that was pretty stupid about it, had a selfish attitude. I wasn't very excited about it, but I'll tell you what, thankfully Coach Heindel and Coach Kelly at the time and Coach Barbazzini, they let me back on the team a couple weeks into the season, and going to be a part of that team changed my whole life. And now, at the time, football was kind of my least favorite sport that I did, but honestly, having been so into basketball for so many years, I think I missed football for that time, and getting to be back on that team, it changed something in me. I would list football as my favorite sport now, honestly. So that co-op was awesome. Getting to play with those guys, and we've really turned the corner as a program. We didn't do so hot there separate, but getting back, getting together. They've had some very successful seasons, 4 district championships. They went to another and lost. They've been in the state playoffs a few times, district playoffs even last year. So it's been a great thing for our communities to do that and keep football alive. I know that people criticize it and stuff and saying, well, you guys have all these kids. Yeah. But, there's been more co-ops since. We were just ahead of the curve, I think, in that regard. So what a blessing to be a part of that. Yeah, I appreciate the way you say that, especially, kind of realizing, hey, I want to get back into this, because there are kids and maybe there's cliques here and there, but go with your heart. Go with your heart. And you knew that's what your heart wanted you to do. And I'm sure you're very happy you made that decision, buddy. I sure am. I'm thankful as heck, for Coach Heindel. Now I'm doing some alumni things for Coach Heindel, funny enough. I got back on the team my junior year and still got a letter, even though I only played in like 7 games. So that was very, very appreciated that they let me do that. I went through a lot to get back on the team. I didn't go through the 2-a-days and stuff. So, they had to make sure my conditioning was right. I had to run some hills and do some things to make sure, that I was worthy to get back on the team. But, I did those things, and I never look back, and I'm thankful as heck that, those guys, I went up to them and apologized and said, I made a mistake. I should have been out for this team. This was stupid. Honestly, the reason that I didn't play was I really thought in my heart that I was going to be some exceptional basketball player, and that, my junior year I needed to get out there and play. And physically, that was never going to happen, Duber. I think I had just a little bit of too much arrogance and too much self-belief, not in a good way. And so quickly I realized I don't think I can. I got to play football. All my friends are doing it.
Yeah.
I really think this is a mistake. And honestly, I don't think I'm that good at basketball. I kind of realized that my junior year, that I don't think I have it in me to be able to play at the next level. And I kept waiting for a growth spurt, Duber. I was 5'8" since I was like 12 years old, and I'm 5'8". I'm 5'8" today. So 17 years later, here I am, and I'm still waiting for that growth spurt. I hope it comes in pretty soon.
Damn, but we're a lot familiar like that too. Yeah, I mean, and that's just one of those things. What I love too is like seeing these kids that you cover on the blog and that are getting an opportunity to continue sports. Yeah, when we're kids, we have grandeurs of playing in the majors or what have you, but reality sets in. But man, when you're able to continue your athletic career and get an education and get some financial support, and again, you're playing the game for love, but it's opened up opportunities and with that education. And how cool is that? And those things are out there for kids. You apply yourself, man.
Absolutely. I would say, when I was going through it, Duber, there were kids that were playing at the next level, and things of that sort. But I don't really think Elk County and a couple counties around us, I don't think kids were necessarily putting themselves out there to the same extent as they are now. I think those connections have been made. That corporate cup has been started in soccer, so that's getting more soccer players. Varichetti All-Stars has become huge for that. Travel baseball, whether you like it or hate it, it's there, and it makes people accessible to be seen. Social media has done a tremendous job in that, in getting people exposure. So I think recruiting has changed a lot. And I'm not saying, Western Pennsylvania is necessarily the biggest hotbed or the hotbed that it used to be, or even specifically, District 9 in Elk County. But there is a lot of talent around here. And, I really in my heart believe that people were missed for decades, and I don't think people are being as missed anymore. And I really appreciate that I'm able to help put some of that exposure out there, and accounts like mine and people like me can, help with that. But they're also able to apply it themselves.
Yeah.
They're finding an opportunity to get out, of their comfort zone and go get that education, go make friends, go compete for another 4 or 5 years. And, I'm glad to see more people going to college and having that opportunity for sure. But I will say too, Duber, at the same time, some of these opportunities at the collegiate level are putting young people in tremendous debt. So I really hope that they're considering those implications instead of just 4 years, instead, thinking about 40 years, because it really is important that they can come out of this and be able to afford their loans if they're going to have any, and, have a good paying job to support them for the rest of their lives. I love sports as much as anybody, but I think that young people still have to consider that, a lot to this day.
Yeah, sure. And that's tough because, again, sometimes reality has to set into you.
Right.
But again, you love sports, I love sports. We've kind of been able to do things with that in our lives. So it can be a win-win. And that could be, with anybody. And you may go to school. I mean, I just look back to different interviews when I interviewed Gavin Kilpack, and he got involved with the bocce ball and the inclusion programs, and it changed his life. And now that steered him towards special education. And, again, that was through sports and just accepting, I want to be part of this. And that steered his life. And those are good stories out there.
Absolutely. Gavin is a tremendous young person. Our town in Ridgway is very blessed to have a young man like him. He's done so much for special education, Special Olympics, bocce ball, unified bocce ball. And so that's a great story. It really has changed his entire life, just making one decision and saying, I'll figure the rest out later. He's got a good friend in Noah who he's, going to be close with, I think, for the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. And, made friendships from around the state of Pennsylvania through the sport, and, won some scholarships because of his involvement. So, it's great to cover those stories like that for sure. And, sometimes you're right, Duber. you just have to take the chance, and sometimes you figure out the rest later. You know, and a lot of it's just saying yes to an opportunity. You never know where it can lead you, and it can lead you to a lot of positive things for sure.
Yeah, that goes back to, again, finding a passion and going towards it. And I'm kind of like I said, it's been a rough couple years here for me with some of the things that have happened, and but it's restored my faith, and it's time to get back out there and do what you love. And this certainly is Absolutely. One of those things, Hey, do you think, I had talked with John Allen last week, and it's almost like, compared to back in the 80s and 90s, it was kind of like it's almost too easy to do these jobs today because everything's out there on the internet. But again, that information is only good as the information punched in. But having said that, it might be easier, but what are you going for? You going for the story, or, you got to be able to, and I think that's where you come in, and you're able to, we can capture, people try to capture that emotion along with the good things. Yeah, there's facts, but let's turn it into something better. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. The stats are tremendous these days. They only keep getting enhanced. They only keep tracking more and more things. But, at the heart of it all is a person, that, bleeds like we bleed, has gone through adversity like we, each of us have, and, has fought hard to get to where they're at. And so I really appreciate the narrative that comes with, getting to know people. And sure, I try to include stats and accolades and things of that nature. They've earned those. They deserve that. But, it's the homage to their family, their coaches, their community, their church community, their university or college. It's those things that I think is tremendous to put out there, because that stands forever. Even if 10, 15 years down the road, they'll look at the stats and things, and they might have set a record or been a part of that. It's pretty neat. But some of those things will get broken. But what they felt about that coach, or what they felt about their parents, and the experiences, favorite memories, those are long-standing things. Rarely are people going to change their mind about those things. So I really am passionate about the narrative. I think, storytelling is really what drives traffic and drives kind of something that sticks with somebody today. Mm-hmm. And so, I'm really after the narrative. The stats are great, and we're very blessed to have the internet where it speeds up things. But I will say, if you're only just giving the facts and the stats, you're not doing the people the service and the justice that they deserve. Yeah. So add those things as a tool. But, the narrative still needs to be good. That's what I think about that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and again, as we approach the world every day and you wake up, you just got to find some good things. And a lot of times, again, if you're a sports person, they're there for you to find. And it's just keeping that negativism out of your life, man. And again, when I can open up Facebook and see one of our local kids on your page, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like, hey, we got people out there telling the story, and we got people out there doing good things, and dang it, that's what we should be doing every day, Nate. I agree, Duber. That's a great point. And that's going back to my blog, not to make it all about the blog, but that's a big reason why I wanted to start it too. Like I said, 2020 was a really negative time. There was a lot of negative news out there, grim outlook on life for so many people, and I just wanted to bring positivity to people's lives, young people's lives, to have their story featured online, but, their parents that might be going through a hard time financially, they might have been laid off or something, lost their job because of COVID. They might have lost a loved one from that, thing that was going around. And I just wanted to put good news out there. At the time we were tracking cases and things like that, and I was like, I'm so sick of seeing this. I need to put something out there that can make a difference in a positive way. So I just started writing stories and connecting with people, and I'm thankful that people have reacted to my page so positively. But yeah, you're right, Duber. We need more positive news out there, and I'm glad that people like you and I can do our best, do our best to make a difference, like you say, so I feel blessed that you feel that way. I feel the same way about Duber's Place. You have some good music on there, some good stories, good interviews, pictures for people's birthdays, pictures of just people that mean a lot to you, and moments in time that mean a lot to you. So I appreciate that about your page as well. So, thanks for always supporting mine. And, I definitely try my best to support yours as well. Yeah, I'm digging the YouTube station, because we're going to get some things going. Got some new equipment, but you know how that goes. They're new toys, and you're going to screw them up if you just start clicking buttons. So
No
we
kidding.
don't want to do that. Just real quick, just throwing some things out there, get some thoughts on it. Anna Duffield and the Pittsburgh Passion playing in the WFA Pro semifinals coming up on Saturday. How cool is that? And that's real football, folks. That is fun football, and we'll have links at Duber's place for you to watch. But how cool is that?
It's truly remarkable to have a young woman here from Ridgway, Pennsylvania, playing professional football, in a city. We're 2 hours from everything, as people like to say. Almost 2 hours from Altoona, about almost 2 hours to State College, 2 hours Pittsburgh and Erie. But here's this young woman, Anna Duffield, who works a full, 10, 12-hour day in the Postal Service, drives to practice, practices hard for 2 or 3 hours, 2 to 3 times a week. Might go to Pittsburgh again over the weekend, get on a flight, go to Orlando, go to Washington, D.C., et cetera, and go, beat the tar out of another woman for, 2 hours playing football. It's unbelievable. The dedication that she's showing, and of course her teammates too. I don't want to downplay them, but I want to make it about Anna a little bit selfishly, because this is an Elk County product here.
Yeah.
What she sacrificed to go through this is truly incredible. And I'm so glad that, you and I have been able to support her in small ways. She's got some sponsors that have supported her, a tremendous family supporting her, and friends too. But, they don't go to practice every day, no offense to them. They don't go out there on the field. They don't, work the 10-hour day, then drive 4 or 5 hours round trip 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Anna loves this game, and she wanted to keep playing it for as long as she could. Never thought it was possible. And now here she is, second year into being a professional athlete, and it's so cool. And I'm so happy for her. And, I hope she can keep doing it for as long as she wants to do it. And I'm hoping that she can bring some more championships to Pittsburgh. They're pretty close, so hopefully a couple more wins or so they can do that.
Yeah, and she's
Anna's a big part of it.
Yeah, and she's an All-Pro. But I got to tell you, just the Divas, their quarterback Amanda Cangiani. I've described her as a cross between Mark Rippiam and John Riggins from the Redskins. And this the Divas are in Passion are Steelers Ravens. Wow. And last game she just lit it up through the air. She did that in the semis last year, which we're in this year, brought them back from 20 points down to go to the championship game. So this is intense. And I also got to tell you, Anna got a sack and a half from my dad when he was still around, which made my day. So, this is brutal. The Divas and the Passion Saturday, folks, will have you where you can tune in, but that's going to be something else.
That's awesome.
And that's awesome. And, again, you mentioned the Corporate Cup all soccer showcase. That is on the 19th. Up at Salamanca. What a cool event that is, Nate. That's got a World Cup filled, all these players. You got 4 teams from each state, a silver, gold, boys and girls, and they're going to have 4 matches up at Salamanca, and they come out with the kids like at the World Cup. And those are just little things, dude, that we just have to let the world know is out there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. They are relentless about, promoting that. They do a heck of a job. They got great sponsors. They have a lot of buy-in from the young people as well, participating from freshmen all the way to seniors and graduates and things of that nature. And so I've gone to that event a few times. I think it's fantastic. It goes back and forth between Bradford and I believe Salamanca. Might have been in Kane in the past. I can't exactly remember, but
they switch every year. Yeah,
they share that pretty well, and I'm really glad they do it because I think there's been quite a bit of soccer talent in this region for a while that wasn't really sure how to put themselves out there. There's not a lot of club teams around here to really latch onto, and not everybody can afford to go be sent to an academy like some of the kids have in the past and stuff. And so I'm glad they do that for recruiting. And it's good community spirit, and it's good at growing the game of soccer. And I think it's going to be tremendously popular this season because I think the World Cup ends maybe the day or around the day that it's over.
Yeah, the championships are that day. Yeah.
Right. So really timely this year, so really excited for those kids. And, I'm hoping the coaches will come there and, maybe some matchmaking can happen between coach and player, and they can join some of those collegiate programs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
we have
I'm
had kids. Yeah, we have had kids that have used that springboard. I've turned into a soccer nerd. The only World Cup matches, in fact, we're interviewing it. I got U.S. pregame on, but were the two that I missed doing the Verichetti game. So I'm into it. My River Hounds are still, they were last year's USL champs. My Riveters, the ladies last night, they got beat. They got ousted from the playoffs. But it's just so cool, too, that we have professional soccer in Pittsburgh, and the facility down there is unbelievable. So I do believe soccer is here to stay now, my friend.
I agree. Football has changed a lot, and soccer's certainly creeping up there. And, the other one that's not too far behind, and, maybe a decade from now might even overtake in some ways tackle football, is flag football.
Yeah.
Especially for young women, it's become an NCAA sport. It's become a high school sport in the WPIAL down in District 7, District 10 up in the Erie, Warren County, Crawford County area. They have some teams up there as well at the high school level. And so, I think that sport is certainly an emerging one for young women especially. And, 10 more years, I think we're going to be talking more about that sport, especially as it's going to be an Olympic sport here in a couple years for the first time. So that one, and obviously soccer too, both growing tremendously in our country. And then two, women's wrestling, acrobatics and tumbling and stunt, other emerging sports. And really good to see, especially for young women, these more opportunities, than ever before. And, truly, you think about it, I look at my grandma's yearbook sometimes, and, I'm not going to say the year to embarrass her or anything, but there was no women's sports,
right?
And it's only like 50 some odd years that we've had Title IX to have, these sports. So I'm glad to see it growing on the women's side, especially. So
I know I've always been an advocate, and I have some things I would like to share with the public someday, because I do think that women have kind of gotten the bad end of the stick sometimes with sports. And so it's good to see that emerging. Well, absolutely. Buddy, again, we both share that love for sports. Just a few more quickies. Pirates got a shot. I think if the pitching can do something, but what's going on?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I think they've waited a little bit too long to address that bullpen, Duber. I think their top couple in the league in runs scored. They almost hit as many home runs this season as they did all last season. They got a second baseman, obviously, in Brandon Lau, who got snubbed as an all-star. Hopefully he'll still make it over the next week or so. Who's pitching fantastic. Braxton Ashcraft, one of the best pitchers right now in the National League. But really it comes down to they got to get better consistently at the starting pitching mark and also in the bullpen. They've blown so many games. And so I'm really holding hope in my heart, Duber, that they're like the 2004 Red Sox. The Red Sox were having a mediocre year that year, and then they went and got bullpen help, and then we all know what happened. They broke the curse of the Bambino and won the World Series. So I'm hoping that we can break that curse, go get some relievers and maybe some even spot starters and turn this thing around. We're scoring enough runs, but we're not helping our hitters anymore. Our starting pitching's gone downhill, and the bullpen has not been very good since, middle of May. And so they really got to string some wins together, and they got to do it fast. And the National League, of course, this year in their Division 2 is absolutely stacked.
Oh, man.
So it's brutal. 4 winning teams in the NL Central right now with winning records. And then, I think there's only like 4 or 5 teams in the NL with losing records in general, as opposed to the AL with 4 teams with winning records, I think, at this moment. So it's definitely disappointing, but I'm holding out hope that they can turn this thing around and string together 6 or 8 games in a row. And if they can do that at some point in the very near future, they're going to have a shot to get in there as a wild card. And I'll be a happy camp.
Yeah, very good. And before you know it, they're going to be firing fall sports up. I got some big plans here for Friday Night Football that we're going to be sharing with people. And obviously, awesome. Nate, just spending some time with you tonight has, I went from Cat has mastered litter. I got to talk to Nate. U.S. wins tonight. That would be a complete day, my friend.
Sure would. I hope they will. Belgium has been kind of a thorn in our side in the past, Duber. So I'm hoping this is the year we get over the hump and, get into the final. It would be the final 8, for the first time in a long time. I think 1930 was the last time that we got into the quarterfinals. And I don't know if you know anything about that. I think they only had maybe 14 or 16 teams then.
Yeah.
And so, I think we're due. It's almost 100 years ago, but maybe with America 250 in the game being in Seattle in our own country, maybe that fares well tonight for us. I hope so, anyway.
Some things aligns. I guess by the time this airs, people will know. So,
right. Absolutely.
So we will stay in touch because I plan on having you involved with some things this fall, my friend. And you got anything special lined up?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to be announcing on a regional broadcast schedule with the EYT Media Group. So I'll have 6 really highly sponsored games around the region that I'll be a part of, and then 4 games more local to Clarion and Venango County that I'll be calling. So I could be sent all over District 9 this year. I'll get to see a lot of good football, some of the games of the week, and I'm excited for it. It's going to be a really neat opportunity, and kind of have a call about that tomorrow. So I can't exactly tell you where or what games at this point, but I'm sure we'll be settling in on that in the coming weeks. So really excited about that. Really blessed to be able to kind of cover District 9 at large in terms of football, and see some really, really good teams that I maybe didn't necessarily always see growing up or see last season. So very, very fortunate to be able to do that.
Very cool. Looking forward to it, my friend. And as always, Nate, thank you so much for your time, buddy.
Absolutely. Duber, I appreciate it so much. Tremendous to always to chat with you and be on your programming. Hopefully I'm allowed to talk about one more thing if you don't mind.
Yeah, shoot.
Ridgway, we lost a sports legend over the weekend, Mr. Shane Williamson, one of the all-time great Elkers, basketball player, football player, baseball player. I was blessed to have him as a Little League coach, made a tremendous difference in the lives of young people as a coach for several years in the Little League. He was one of the loudest Ridgway Elker basketball fans in my childhood. Always a front row or front couple rows at every game that I can remember. Gone too soon, but seriously, one of the best to ever do it for the Ridgway Elkers. And our community is definitely mourning the loss of him, and I'm mourning the loss of him as a coach and young mentor. I didn't keep in close enough contact with Shane, but he was a good guy, and seriously, he will always be one of the best to ever do it for Ridgway. So I want to give condolences to his family and friends and closest loved ones during a tough time. We'll always remember him as a good guy and one of the best to ever suit up for the Elkers, no doubt about it.
Oh, thank you so much, Nate. Thank you so much.